Hello, everyone. It's February 2021. I know I keep thinking, what happened to 2020? It felt like it was 10 years ago, but yet here we are in 2021. And I'm wondering, how did we get here so fast? It's like the year in limbo has frozen time for me. So, 2021 is going to be the year that I do more on marking time and doing things to mark occasions and days and even work on some daily rituals. We'll talk about that. So, I'm a 15-minute a day, 15 minutes at a time project person. Um, so, I have really done a lot of things over the last few years in just these small increments of time. So, the quilt I've been working on recently was the Best Friends Quilt Along quilt and the Stitches from the Heart quilt. Both were Fat Quarter Shop free patterns, and I was able to participate in the sew alongs. If you want to see all about the things that I'm talking about, the pictures will be on my Instagram page, which is Vicky L. Holloway Quilting. And of course, you can always find show notes on the website, which is mycreativecorner3, number 3.com. Did you notice that? I bought a different type of package, and so you can drop the WordPress and the address of my website. So those two big quilt projects took a lot of time over the last couple of months. Everything from cutting them out to getting the material, which was a big deal in December, with the mail and all of that. Angel and I worked together for the Best Friends Quilt Along, working to find a day where I could get the pictures done. I got the Treadle sewing machine in my dining room set up, got some pictures of both of those quilts, and everybody loves a quilt in snow and a quilt with the Treadle sewing machine. Both of those photos did very well, and I was really pleased because I have to say, I really worried about the pictures and I worked extra hard. So I'm glad that extra effort paid off a little bit, because sometimes the extra effort that you put into something doesn't always pay off quite well. But that did, and it made my January and into February a much brighter month. I decided that I needed a little break from all of that quilting. I have a couple of in progress. They're not UFOs yet. I'm not going to call them UFOs, but I put them up. I put the quilting things on pause. And so what I've been doing over the last little bit is I have been loom knitting. That's a big tongue twister. And this is the very first project I'm wearing around my neck. It's a cowl with a bright blue teal knit stitch. It's a knit 3 and purl on the 4th row. It's a tube. I like because it's a looser knit and it doesn't feel quite as hot, and it's comfortable. I'm working on a little bit bigger tube currently. Same stitch, fatter yarn in pinks, and that I love the teals and pinks. They look good on me, and they're also the cowl is something easy, and it's a great way to learn how to loom knit. So my sister and I are continuing in the Our Creative Souls segment. She is loom knitting hats. You can find all kinds of free patterns on Pinterest for loom knitting. Now, my whole goal of learning how to loom knit is socks. I do know how to knit. I have all kinds of knitting needles. I've done different projects over the years, but I'm not an advanced knitter. And socks with double pointed, I've tried a couple times. I just have a hard time with it. So loom knitting looks more like my speed. I can do it, I think, with a little bit heavier yarn, and they'll be more like slippers. Who knows? Maybe I'll even try wool and make some phenomenally warm socks, because, it's been freezing around here. So overall, my sister and I have been working on loom knitting, and we've been dreaming about gardening. She has her hydroponic water system set up, and she's been harvesting all of her vegetables already. She has started strawberries in a tower system. It's just amazing what you can do when you want to grow things inside. I am just planning the fairy garden. I've been studying photographs and videos of my garden last summer at the end. Remember, I had to redo my whole garden, that whole property line thing, and my garden got damaged and trees gone. Well, okay, so I'm getting over that part, but now I have to take this summer, now that the shock of all those plants being moved has had a growing season in a winter, of really making a good plan of where I want the plants to live. I made a couple mistakes planting, I can tell already. You know, some things that are taller, I want them more toward the back. And we planted some cedar trees, so hopefully they survived the winter. But overall, that's what I've been doing, watching old garden shows. I love Gardener's World by BBC, and BBC had another show with Monty Don called Big Ideas, Small Spaces. I've rewatched all of them because I love the show's you can do it attitude, even if you have a tiny garden, which I do. And I learn so much every time I see a gardener, especially Monty Don on TV. He gives a lot of advice in a small, digestible space. And you're like, every time I watch the show, I pick up something new. So we've been dreaming about gardens. I've been looking online at seed catalogs and trying to figure out if there's any interesting plants that I can grow in Zone 4B. Just so you know, it's Zone 4B. We can only get about 90 to 120 days of a growing season. So if you want to do a vegetable, it's got to be a 90-day vegetable. I'm not doing vegetables because they're a lot of work and I've not had a lot of success. I know with the trees gone, I might have more success. But if we're going to do anything like that, it's going to be pots of patio tomatoes and things like that. So that's our creative souls. My sister and I have a little website that I've been updating and trying to gather the free patterns that we've been using and free ideas and just all of the crafting things that we have been up to. And I have to say that I am continuing in the vein of taking free classes online. The best resource I've found for that is Michael's. And I spent a lot of time over the last month watching free classes. And some of my favorite have been hand lettering and doing art journals. And I've also experimented with some of the acrylic paintings. They're in that paint and sip style of teaching, and they're more simplified still lifes and things like that. So I'm going to try that again today because I painted over the last one because I didn't have all of the right materials, but I do now. So I think I'll have better results. And you know, that's been a great way to stimulate some creativity and try new things. And that's what I've been doing with the craft types of things over the last couple of weeks, just because I got burnt out on making so many quilts. And then I went through the house. I have TikTok too. Yeah, I know why. I don't know. I do. It's fun. TikTok there's a lot of people who are Gen X people on there, but it's typically a lot of people who are millennials have a lot more accounts. But I went through and did like every place I had quilts stashed in my house. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so many quilts. So I think this year is going to be finishing up, the goal is finishing up the quilt tops I have, which are quite a few, and I'm working on my last customer quilt right now that's on the frame. And I'm going to finish up a couple of little jobs that I've been hired to do and finish up the disappearing 9-patch. No, it's an Irish chain. That's what it is. It's an Irish chain. About halfway done with that. And I'm almost done with the Kinship Fusion Sampler. So I want to finish those this year. And then at some point, I want to dig out the UFO, which I've stitched a little bit on, which is my hexagon English paper pieced temperature quilt. But I also want to work on some other hexagons I've prepped in making a project, and that's bumblebee themed. And then the year I think is just going to kind of just go where it takes me. And I have some half square triangle ideas, maybe doing a postcards from Sweden. I've always liked that quilt. Um, you know, just kind of see where it goes. And really focus more on working on collecting ideas, even in this art journal, to help be inspired. And the other part is you got to go where the energy is. And if you're tired, like I've been over the last few weeks, things not feeling well, then yeah, maybe not the time to work on especially complicated quilts. But eventually, I want to get my Dear Jane back out and start working on it. So that's pretty much what I have been working on. And you're like, wow, that was a short podcast. But sometimes, you have to not work on as many projects and things, and you have to work on relaxing. So what I'm really, over the, relaxing phase. Now I'm ready. I feel recuperated and getting back into the exercise. I'm not really hammered out a workout that I want to do yet. I haven't workout what I do. That's not what I wanted to say. How about a workout that I'm comfortable doing? I have the rowing machine and I can do 15 minutes on that, and I'm slowly building up. 15 minutes is 2,000 meters for me, and that feels pretty quick. I'm still working on a weight training program in between days of working out. So a couple days a week is where I'm at, and I'd like to get up to 3 or 4 days a week. Oh yeah, there's lots of people online, and I've been watching their things and learning how to do different weight training ideas. I'm not used to free weights and not used to barbells, hand weights, resistant bands. Yeah, I gotta learn a lot about that kind of stuff. So if you have some, places that on YouTube or the internet, maybe you could let me know. Paula B, I know, is real popular with a lot of people, and I've watched her things. I like her workouts because I can relate to her. She's not, but she's kind of advanced for me. She's not a person that I feel like I could never do her workout, and maybe I could over time. But yeah, she's a little advanced. I probably need like a senior citizen workout, really, because I gotta start somewhere. Gotta start somewhere. And then the next thing I want to work on is the end of winter and pre-spring cleaning of, sorting, decluttering, kind of get things a little more organized around here, kind of slacked off on that a little bit with the pandemic. And yeah, so I've been working on that. Feels like I've done that. That's all I've done for a year, but I still have a long, long ways to go. And if you're trying to, assimilate things into your house after someone passes away and trying to figure out what you want to keep and how you want to display things, what needs to go to other people, I'm still kind of working on some of that. But the other part of the whole thing is I've got so much stuff. I love my antique dishes, and I love collecting things so much, but I'm running out of room for it. Totally running out of room. And I think that the next thing that I want to work on for 2021 is to break out of this feeling that we're in limbo. And I'm working from home. If you're watching this on YouTube, this is the music room, and this is where I work. The next chair is the dining room, and that's where my sewing machine is. And then my little pink upholstered chair is in the living room, and that's where I watch TV, which is really watching YouTube videos and sports. And then, probably falling asleep in the chair at night or in the morning when I'm doing my morning coffee stuff. But, everything I, have read and talked to people about is that this last year feels like just not going and doing all of the things that we normally do, especially the gatherings and rituals, which I never understood at all. I get now. I do. I get it now. Otherwise, it's Groundhog's Day. You know, we need those special times to mark occasions and the traditions that you do in your family. But I want to work on more than just traditions. So I've been reading up on rituals and anthropology. And yes, I'm a nerd. I know I'm a nerd and a geek about these things. But I also have been wanting to learn about other cultures and expand my horizons. In fact, uh, I digress here, but when it was Lunar New Year, I was reading all about it and what is tradition in countries that have Lunar New Year as a really big holiday. And I learned the significance of the red money envelope that was on the plant that I bought, because that's how I celebrated Lunar New Year, as I went to the store and bought the plant. It is a little money plant, and it had a red envelope on it that was for money, and it's a good fortune. And the red is the very significance. It wasn't really the money, it was the color red. I have a lot more to learn on it, but these are things that I'm doing to try to make it feel like this year is going to be full of meaning, it's going to be full of purpose, and it's going to be full of doing things that mark those special times of the year and special times of the day. So that was Lunar New Year. For Valentine's Day, we don't typically celebrate a big Valentine's Day, but I made a special dinner. And my cooking is terrible. Yes, I'm just going to put it out there. My cooking is really terrible. And the roast didn't turn out as great as I had hoped it to be. We tried to go out to dinner, because professionals cook better than me, but the restaurants were packed, and with the pandemic, it was pain. So that's what we did for Valentine's Day. We just um, had a special meal, and we watched the Daytona 500, which is something we always do. Marks the beginning of NASCAR, marks the midpoint of January. February is halfway through, so we're like midpoint of winter, that spring is on the horizon in other places. The ritual of planning the gardening and organizing my thoughts for spring cleaning, because and today is Fat Tuesday, which is a pretty big deal in our part of the world. People buy punchkis, which is a little, it's a donut, it's a pastry, like a filled Bismarck with powder on it sometimes. It's not generally frosted. I'm not having it today, but I know it's pancake day in a lot of other parts of the world. That's how they have the day designated, because it's the beginning of Lent is starting up. So Lent is something that my spiritual beliefs, I know of it, but we didn't have a lot of big Lenten types of things. So I want to learn more about that. Of course, Easter is a really big Christian holiday, which is something that I'm familiar with. And I just want to learn more about these traditions as well as rituals, because I'm finding that the ritual part is got me curious, because I didn't used to think that they were important, but I'm finding after a year of not really engaging in a lot of rituals that they are. I have a lot of things I thought were tradition, that rituals were for like special people who had this special insight, and they were a leader in guru in this thing. But actually that's not true. Habits are my exercise habit that I opened this segment in talking about. I haven't made that a ritual. Doesn't have this deep personal meaning. A ritual, I think, is more of a motivation of deep significance, and that can be spiritual significance, that could be personally, it could be, it's the motivation. It's this deep personal conviction to do it because of marking the beginning of something and ending of something. And what I found interesting was as I've been reading about this is that I found a really good article on Psychology Today actually, and I want to find the quote. So, give me one moment while I open up that document. But I've been looking at all of those things as, yeah. So this year I'm really going to mark the days of special occasions with a lot of interest and with all kinds of, I don't know, like celebrations, like not necessarily just because I want to make it a Pinterest holiday, but it's really more of why I'm doing it. Okay, here's one. On, say, your grandmother's birthday. To remember her, you get a special teacup that was your grandmother's, and you make a cookie or a scone or something that your grandmother made. And it's a day of doing that simple act, but it can become an annual ritual of remembering and having deep connection with both the past and then passing that tradition on into other members of your family, say your children or grandchildren. So that's where I'm thinking the importance of rituals come from. Now, of course, I love Time Team and I love watching that archaeology show. It's another thing I've been spending a lot of time on is watching the reruns of this particular show. And they have a site in the UK generally is the setting. And they have 3 days to do it. And they have 3 days to do the who, what, where, when, and why of this archaeological site. And when they don't know when they really don't know what it's about, right out the gate, there are 2 or 3 of the archaeologists that say, wow, it's a ritual site. And I always thought, you know what? I've watched this show since the late 90s. And I'm like, that's kind of a big cop out, don't you think? Ritual. They don't even know, is what I used to think. But now I'm finding that they really do think a lot of these sites were ritual. Like, for example, Stonehenge, they don't really know why they built it. They don't really know what it was for or how it was used or why did they spend so much time and money. But we do the same thing. And I was just really, really struck, as I was reading about this, about how many things that I do that I thought were just traditions or things that I do, but they really, really are more of a ritual. And I'm like, what? I thought that was not really that important. But when you get to be in your 50s, it is important. And so I want to find that Psychology Today thing because that's the kind of where I'm operating from on rituals. So, in this article on Psychology Today that was written during the pandemic last year in May, actually. Oh, of course, I didn't mute notifications. Sorry about that. And it says one of the most important features of rituals is that they do not only mark time, they create time. By defining beginnings and endings to developmental or social phases, rituals structure our social world and how we understand time, relationships, and change. I really, really like that. It creates time. So if you're like me, last year felt like a total year of limbo. I have a few things that I remember that were a ritual. I did eventually succumb to putting up a Christmas tree when I initially thought, no way, I'm not even going to put one up. Why bother? We eventually made a plan for Christmas lasagna, which is something we've done, special meal. We did Thanksgiving. We had a couple of barbecues over the summer during the appointed times. We kicked off summer, but did the gardening thing But yeah, I just felt I remember those things about the time passing, and we tried to do something special on birthdays. But that's the whole importance, because if I didn't do anything at all during those days, the year would be mush. It would be like Groundhog's Day. Oh, same thing over and over. And I kind of feel, you probably do too, that this is how it's been for a while. I remember quilting, I remember sewing, I remember, doing the day to day mundane things, but I can't tell you when I started things, or I know when we started sewing masks, and I remember starting, a few projects throughout the year, but it's pretty nondescript. So creating time, the beginning, the ritual of celebrating something new, like birthdays, is a new baby, or a new wedding, a new relationship, the beginning of a new life together. Those things we didn't have many of those at all, and it's like no graduation parties, no, because that's how I remember things too, right? Oh yeah, remember that was the summer we went to so and so's graduation party, or that summer must have been about this time. It creates time in our brain as well as in our life. And I don't feel like I'm wasting time when I'm able to perform and participate in those types of rituals. And I'm going to make them even bigger deals, and I'm going to make them something even more special in 2021 than I've ever done in the past. When the kids were little, we made a big deal about everything, right? And then it kind of fades as they leave home, and the next thing you know, you're kind of making everything day to day, and you can fall into the rut of Groundhog's Day, and especially during the pandemic. And it may be a whole nother year of this, right? We don't know when it's going to end. And so I'm going to make, not ridiculous or over the top, but very meaningful types of rituals and celebrations. So, my whole thing for Lunar New Year, I think that's a great thing to start. I'm going to, even if I just jot things down in my journal on these days that I learn new things and participate in new things. And rituals are going to be things like birthdays, and maybe even my morning coffee is a ritual. It is how I start the day. And my lunch, I leave work when I was working in an office, and I came home for lunch every day. It was a protected thing that I did every day. And I'm going to take those times and make the ritual even more special by um, expanding on what I already do. Like in the morning, when I do morning coffee, I'm generally um, making some plans for the day, or I'm working on trying to clear my mind and start off with gratitude and thankfulness, as well as making a game plan for the day. Same with um, ending the day is usually watching a show, doing a wind down, recapping the day, hand sewing, and then working on my weekly Saturday morning coffee. That's a ritual. I get up early and I'm drinking my coffee, usually when it's dark, and I watch the light change from night to day, and reflecting on the insights of things that I've learned over the week. I realize I do a lot of rituals, and I'm going to continue to do that, and I'm going to continue to add rituals. So I'm reading Meg Cox. She is the lady who goes by a quilt journalist, and she wrote a book about families and rituals, and I checked it out on Libby, and I'm just getting started. She's doing a great job. It's called The Book of New Family Traditions: How to Create Great Rituals for Holidays and Every Day. So the holiday rituals, I'm really gonna dig into that this year, because I kind of didn't last year and haven't over the last couple years since my kids have left home. And I'm going to do that for me, and do these rituals. And maybe some of them may be very personal, and I won't share them with you, but things like why I'm going to do a certain thing on a certain day. We all have those. And I think that is what my plan is. And I'm going to kind of ferret this out a little bit more as I do more research and study. And I think it's taken me down a lot of anthropology articles. And it's about time I did something more than just watch junk TV and read science fiction. I need to do, I'm going to learn some things in this. And I think it's great. And it's been a lot of fun in the things that I got really excited about in learning about rituals with the differences between habits and routines and rituals. So I've kind of like even wrote some of it down just to take notes to myself, for myself on all of these. And I'm even trying to keep track of some of my um, articles and references so that I can keep, I don't remember like I used to. Do you? I don't. And even with vitamins, it's not helping. So I have to keep track of all of this kind of stuff. So that's what I've been up to. Some creating, some yarn work. Oh, I found a UFO yarn um, of granny squares, and there's enough I have to just crochet a couple more that I'm going to sew the granny squares together, make little purses for my grandchildren in hope that this spring I can go visit them and take the purses filled with little things from around the house that I want them to have. They're little kids, so it's going to be like toys and different things. And so that's a UFO I want to finish. I found that stack of granny squares, and I've been doing my loom knitting, but I've also been knitting just, it's called re-up thread, re-up yarn from Lion Brand. I've been doing some it's cotton, knitted grandma's favorite dishcloth. Work has been texting me because I have the day off, and I'm trying to not let this distract me, but it distracted me, and I'm going to have to. I know it's my day off and they call me, but sometimes you just got to do that. That's just part of life. But right in the middle of the podcast, for seriously, people, I'm trying to record a podcast on my day off. Don't you know how important this ritual is for me? So, so that's another project that I'm working on right now. And I want to do a art journal page for this weekend, which is hand lettering. And I've been thinking about it's faux calligraphy, not real calligraphy because I can't be that perfectionist, but I love the faux calligraphy. And it's going to be a 2-page journal spread that says 35 years in love, and with hearts and all of the romantic things about 35 years in love. And I wrote a little, some thoughts about that on my blog about being married 35 years. And I basically came down to this. There's no secret to being married 35 years. It's hard work. You make a choice. And the only way I think that people, they have these long, lifelong relationships is because they are able to come together in a partnership and have a united goals, united front, united mindset on how they want to achieve that, whatever that may be. And when everybody has a little bit of change in their life and each partner has a little bit of change, you have to allow the growth and change to happen. That's my only thoughts on being married 35 years. It's great. It's a good thing. But at the same time, it's not all the hearts and roses and flowers and birds singing and glitter falling from the sky, right? If you've been in a relationship for a long time, you know that, yeah, there's a lot of those days. But there's a lot of everyday life. And that's where I think the rituals help you get through. The anniversary ritual. We go to the Straits of Mackinac, and we spent one day up in that area right after we got married. And this year it happened to be the day that the ice is stacking up on the beach. I know that's a northern Michigan rural person thing, but when the blue ice stacks up on the shallow water in the beach, we try to go up there if there's any way to do it. And this year we went, it's going, you know what, even if we sit in the car and take a picture because it was 6 degrees. I know a lot of you, it's been 6 degrees too. And if you're from Texas and it's 6 degrees, I lived in Texas 2 years. The the neighborhood I lived in Texas was not equipped for snow or 6 degree weather. The house was not designed for that. So I feel you. I feel for you. And I hope you can have power and shelter and all that. But I digress. We went up there, and when you walk out, yes, you have to walk out on the frozen water, probably 15, 20 feet. And this year it's stacked up so far, probably about 10, 12 feet. Sometimes as it warms up over the next week or so, it's supposed to warm up. The wind is blowing the ice, and it typically gathers in Mackinac, and it will in other bays along the Great Lakes. But at Mackinac, it's only 5 miles between the upper peninsula and the lower peninsula, and the ice is fresh water. And I looked this up before the podcast, and it looks teal or blue. This year when we went, it was incredibly blue, and it's because it's, number one, fresh water. The ice is probably 3, 4 feet thick, and it stacks up with no air bubbles in it. So the lack of air in it causes the reflection to look that color, very blue or teal. And this year it was blue, incredibly blue. I put pictures up, and it did not have a filter on it. That was the color I saw with the light on our anniversary. And that ritual was just so fun because we went out, we froze, my cheeks are burned from the wind, and I've got you get so much frozen wind up in your eyes and stuff. My eyes are a little swollen today. But it was all worth it. And then we took all the back roads back to our hometown, looked for deer, and we saw 60 white-tailed deer, no elk, 2 partridges that were perched up in their trees, safe away from predators. And then it was so cold. We saw a sundog. You know what a sundog is? It's when the air is so cold and there's a little bit of clouds around the sun, and it's a 360-degree circular rainbow, and 2 sides of the rainbow are bright. And that happens when it's this bitterly cold, because I think, if you know more and you're more of a weather person and a scientist than me, that the ice crystals freeze. Now that happens at night when you see beams going from like billboards all the way up into the sky, and because the air crystals it's not water vapor anymore. It's frozen and reflecting the light. So I felt like we were in Alaska when we're standing on the lakes, because that's how I imagine the North Pole and possibly northern parts of Alaska looking like. We were freezing, and we had our heavy coats on, and we were still freezing. But we got some wonderful pictures, and we had a day of wonderful memories. And sundogs, 2 partridges, blue ice, and a lot of fun. We tried to find, a place to eat out for dinner, but that didn't go at all. So today I'm hopefully going to make up for my bad meal on the weekend with a good meal today. Because it's day off, I'm going to take some more time and try to cook a better meal. And I think for the rest of the day, I'm going to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that exercise, and I'm going to start the spring cleaning, because if I start now, I'll get it done. I'm going to go through my clothes and just sort out what I haven't worn, and one bag at a time, get rid of it, because most of it is so old, it's not worth upcycling or sending to the Goodwill. So that's my plan for my last day of vacation over a long weekend, working on rituals. And I already did my long arming. That was my goal for the quilting segment for the day. And you can see what I did on Instagram. And please leave a comment on the show notes on my Creative Corner 3.com. Doesn't that sound weird? And tell me a little bit about maybe some ritual things that you have learned about. And if you have good resources for me to learn more about it or free classes, if you have found free craft classes or art classes outside of Michael's, let me know because I would love to take more free classes because it's going to be a long ways before I can get out in the garden. So you have a most wonderful week. Stay warm, stay safe, and quilt on, everyone.